Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my Karen mother-in-law cleans my house without asking and demands to be paid for it. I, female 31, gave birth to my beautiful son a week ago. Unfortunately, there were some complications, so I was only released yesterday, but I'm so grateful to be home with our baby. When my water initially broke, my husband, who's 33, and I were at home, and I happened to be standing on my bedroom carpet. Cleaning was obviously not the priority, so I threw some towels down and we left for the hospital. During the time we were in the hospital, my mother-in-law, who's 59, kindly offered to feed our dogs for us, and we were very appreciative of her help. It was only once we got home yesterday that I saw my mother-in-law had left a receipt and a note stuck to the fridge, saying that she had cleaned my bedroom carpet and wanted to be reimbursed. She had also taken it upon herself to clean the rest of the house while she was at it, and all in all, would like a day's pay at $25 per hour plus $200 worth of products. Now, while it was nice of her to clean my carpet and then the rest of the house, neither of us asked her to do this. My husband wrote her the following text. "Hello, Mom. We really appreciate your help over the last few days while OP was in the hospital. It was great having someone over to look after the dogs. We noticed your note and receipt on the fridge, and we're a little upset that you took it upon yourself to 1. Snoop through the house, as neither of us had told you about OP's water breaking in the bedroom, and 2. Go out and buy hundreds of dollars worth of cleaning products, and 3. Charging us for your time and the aforementioned products. We would also like to ask where these cleaning supplies are, as if we're paying for them, we would certainly like to get our money's worth. When we entrusted you with the dogs, we really thought you were helping us out of the goodness of your heart and not giving you an opportunity to make a quick buck. We are family, and we're hurt that you would do something like this while OP was so unwell." My mother-in-law immediately responded to my husband, saying that she did what she did out of the kindness of her heart, and she cannot believe we would be so ungrateful. I've also received some texts from extended family members saying that mother-in-law didn't have to help me, but did so despite her advanced age out of love. I've had to turn off my phone so that I don't have to deal with all of the texts, but my husband is still getting a lot of hate from his family because we are manipulating the situation and making mother-in-law the bad guy when she was only trying to get the house ready for the baby. I'm quite upset by this whole thing, but my husband is now saying that maybe we should pay her to get the extended family off our back and just enjoy this time as new parents rather than dealing with all of this. I'm not okay with paying his mom for anything. She sent another text to my husband earlier saying she would be happy to gift us the products, take it off the bill, but she would still like to be paid for her time given that she dealt with a biohazard. Not the jerk. It's only help if the recipient actually wants it. Otherwise, it's imposing yourself on them. Charging for it is only doubling down on the problem because now it's forcing unwanted commercial services on you. If she's done it out of the kindness of her heart, the most she could possibly ask for is the cleaning supplies because that's the only thing she is out financially, and I'd even be giving that the side eye. The kindness of one's heart doesn't come with a price tag. My Karen girlfriend keeps choosing my dad over me. What should I do? My girlfriend, Shay, who's 27, and I, male 26, are on a small vacation to my hometown. She's only ever met my dad and extended family, my aunt, uncle, and cousins, over the phone, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to introduce everyone properly. But since we've arrived, Shay's behavior towards my dad has been seriously off-putting. For example, I thought it would be fun if we all went horseback riding. My younger cousins do it as a hobby, so I thought it would be nice to do an activity we'd all like. But Shay wouldn't even get on the horse because she said she was scared. It's been years since I've been on a horse, but they were so calm and honestly not a problem at all. I offered to stay with her while the others enjoyed themselves, but she insisted I go because my dad already offered to stay behind. He doesn't usually go horseback riding either. It was weird that she didn't want me there too, but I let it be. There have been other instances too, like how she asked my dad to show her around town instead of staying with me and meeting my old friend from high school. It was an impromptu meetup. We literally ran into him while we were looking for somewhere to get lunch with my dad, but it would have been nice if she made the effort to get to know him instead of going out with my dad. The final straw was when we were all at my aunt's house for dinner. Shay made cupcakes, baking is kind of her thing, and she made some chocolate and peanut butter ones specifically because they're my dad's favorite. She made a few different types of cupcakes, but none of the others were my other relatives' favorite flavors. When we got back to our Airbnb, I confronted her. I know Shay's dad left when she was a teen and they're no contact, so I figured she might be clinging to my dad because it's nice to have a fatherly presence and not something that she's used to. I asked her, jokingly, to rein in her daddy issues and to stop being so clingy with my dad. She blew up at me, telling me that she's trying her best to fit in and that I've put no effort in making her feel welcome. Neither of us were willing to compromise, and I ended up sleeping somewhere else for the night. I need to talk things out with her today, but before I do, I want to make sure I'm not the one in the wrong. Sorry, bud. I think you're the one with the daddy issues. I don't see anything wrong about the way she was acting towards your dad based on what you described. So you're mad because your girlfriend was too nice to your dad and was trying too hard to fit in and be friendly? That makes absolutely zero sense. The horseback riding thing is totally normal. She doesn't like riding and didn't want you to miss out. 2. You wanted to blow off plans with your dad to visit your friend. This is rude to me, and she didn't want your dad bailed on. Brownie points to her for trying to be polite to your family. 3. Cupcakes. Why do you care? It's a nice gesture she made a bunch for everyone in your family. I want to hear more about how she feels, and why is she saying you haven't made her feel included or welcome? She's the one in a new environment trying to impress people. That's stressful, and you're being weird about this. OP. My aunt and uncle are just as important, and so are my cousins. My mom isn't around anymore, so my aunt is the biggest female influence I have in my life. Shay knows this, but hasn't put in any thought to spending more time with her. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought bonding with her would have been more of a prime focus. I'm not insecure about this. It's just undeniably strange that she's doing so much to spend time with my dad and not putting in that much effort with my other family members. No, it's really weird that you bailed on hanging out with your dad to hang out with some guy you went to high school with. OP. They were one of my best friends in high school, and we both, unfortunately, lost touch with each other in our college years. Also, my dad said it was fine for us both to go with my friend. He really didn't care about it. Okay, so if she is an outsider, which admittedly she is, why would she blow off meeting an old friend of mine and learning about these old stories and memories? If the roles were reversed, I would love to chat with one of her old friends and see what she was like before we met, get some funny stories about back in the day, etc. Out of curiosity, where did you end up sleeping? I slept at a friend's house. A few people live there, so before you ask, it wasn't like I was having some one-on-one time with someone else. A female friend? There's 6 people who live there. Of course a few of them were women, but they weren't why I was staying there. Has your dad stolen a girlfriend before? Do you have a reason to not trust him? Also, it makes sense she would make cupcakes for the primary parent and not extended family. OP. No, my father has never stolen one of my girlfriends before. This isn't some soap opera. As for the cupcake thing, I get where you're coming from, but the only family I have is my dad, aunt, uncle, and 3 cousins. That's it. And yet she only made my dad's favorite. Even if she made my dad's and the other relatives' favorite, I would say that's fair. But it's the fact that everything revolves around my dad is what made me question it. Wrongfully so, according to the comments, which I accept. Update. Okay, I get it. I'm wrong. Even though a lot of you were really harsh in the comments of my last post, I appreciate the honesty and I think I needed it. I read every comment and I understand it was wrong of me to joke about a potentially triggering topic around my girlfriend. Me joking about it was a jerk thing to do, and any concerns I had, I should have said it in a much better way. I went back to the Airbnb today, and you'll never guess who was there with my girlfriend. Yes, it was my father. He was in the kitchen cleaning up what looked like leftovers from breakfast. He said he stopped by a cafe that's at the end of the street and bought us breakfast, but I wasn't there when he arrived. By that point, Shay told him everything about our argument, and he wasn't happy. Where was Shay when I arrived back? My dad said she was in the shower and getting ready, and that they were going to my aunt's house looking for me. They both presumed that's where I was, considering I wasn't at the Airbnb, nor was I with my dad. We talked and I helped him clean up their breakfast. While I did, I saw the receipt in the to-go bag. Considering the cafe he bought the breakfast is in literally 5 to 10 minutes away, and he came straight from there to the Airbnb, it's safe to assume he spent at least 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours at the Airbnb before I arrived. But sure, that's normal. I didn't bring this up or even question it. I've learned my lesson about bringing up stupid and immature concerns. My dad reiterated a lot of the things people said in my post, like how Shay didn't want me to miss out on the horseback riding, that she wanted to give me time with my friend without being the third wheel, and he said that his favorite recipe flavor came up while they were walking around town together. It was an embarrassing conversation, and while we didn't discuss everything I wanted, it's a start. When my dad left, I spoke to Shay and apologized. She was really quiet, and when we talked about it further, she was crying a lot. The only thing she really said is that we have underlying issues from before this vacation and that this whole ordeal just adds to it. We were supposed to go to a game night at my aunt and uncle's tonight, but Shay said she isn't going and that she wants some time to think. I respect that. I don't know if Shay wants me to stay at the Airbnb tonight or not, but I'm glad she didn't immediately break up with me like some of you suggested. My dude, I hope you see this. Your whole story reads like you either have self-confidence issues or you've had the wool over your eyes before, presumably not involving your dad. What you are creating here is called a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're looking for a problem that isn't there and potentially creating the catalyst to make it or something like it actually happen. For whatever reason, you don't trust your girlfriend here. And if there are underlying issues from before this trip, I get the feeling you might not have trusted her ever. She's in this relationship for a reason, dude, and the reason is not your dad. Look past your insecurities and discover what you've got here before it's too late. OP, I don't have any self-confidence issues, but I'll take what you said and really think about it. I didn't think there were any issues between me and my girlfriend before this trip. She's been nothing but supportive of me, and I always imagined a future with her. The insinuation that something happened when Dad was there for a few hours for breakfast with, "But sure, that's normal." Maybe I'm naive, but he came with food for all three of them and then potentially helped console girlfriend while waiting for OP to arrive, especially as they didn't know when OP would arrive and he would normally wake up earlier. I could absolutely see my parents doing that if I pulled something like this with a partner. OP is either super insecure or just really wanted to justify cheating on his girlfriend by being able to say his girlfriend was trying to hook up with his dad. Either way, get therapy, because wow, what are you even doing? OP was not overreacting. It's obvious that his girlfriend had daddy issues and was throwing herself at his dad. And of course, the dad is loving it because he's an old guy who probably doesn't get much attention. So his son's girlfriend throwing herself at him like this, dude was just loving every bit of it. OP should have seen this red flag for what it was and found someone who had some respect for him and wouldn't throw herself at his dad. She should be choosing you, bro, not your dad. And for everyone saying you're in the wrong, would they still feel that way if dad's new girlfriend was throwing herself at you and choosing you over your dad? Actually, they would probably love that. All these people are backwards. Am I the jerk for giving my daughter a name my grandma hates? I, 27 female, gave birth to me and my husband's, 31 male, first baby almost 2 months ago. She's perfect, and I was so excited to have my family meet her. I have 3 older sisters who all have kids as well. A fun tradition that my family does is to have a small get-together once the baby is about 2 to 3 months old. We don't announce the baby's name until after the birth to make it a surprise. At the little party, we give the parents a bunch of little gifts that have the new baby's name on them. My grandmother always quilts a beautiful baby blanket and embroiders the baby's name. She's done this for all my sisters and cousins. The issue is the name my husband and I chose for our daughter. For context, my grandma has a unique history with her own name. She was born as Lucille, but from the time she was 8, she told every single person she met that her name was Barbara. She did this for years, until even her family called her Barbara. She even got her name legally changed. When I was a kid, I asked her why she changed it. She simply said she liked Barbara better. It became a family joke, but she never seemed upset about it and always laughed with us. My husband's grandmother raised him from when he was a baby to when she passed away when he was 19. Her favorite celebrity was Lucille Ball. She and her husband used to watch I Love Lucy all the time together. He misses her very much and said that he would love to honor her in some way. Her name was Mary, but we chose to have that as our daughter's middle name. We decided that Lucy is a name we both loved and would honor his grandmother and maybe make mine chuckle a bit. After I gave birth, me and my husband were FaceTiming my entire family when we announced the name. A few of my relatives laughed and said it was cute, but my grandma was dead silent. When I asked her what was wrong, she demanded to know why I chose Lucy. I was shocked and confused. I began to try and explain, but she suddenly hung up. This greatly dampened the mood. My grandma wouldn't answer any calls from me afterwards. I asked my oldest sister, and she said that my grandma was apparently offended and thought we were mocking her. She said she's not coming to the party in a few weeks to meet my daughter in person and that she's not giving the baby quilt to us unless we apologize and change our daughter's name. I don't know why it's escalated so much. My grandma has always been kind. I have no idea what to do. Births in my family are always celebrated and happy events, but this has ruined it. I almost feel like some of my relatives are ignoring me because they don't want to pick sides, but I don't even understand why there's a fight. Dealing with this along with my newborn has been incredibly stressful. My family is puzzled as well, but most of them are saying I shouldn't have chosen a name I knew my grandmother disliked, or at least asked her about it first. Am I the jerk? Edit. I've seen a lot of comments asking why I didn't even think to ask my grandmother about the name, or why I would pick the name she obviously disliked. Like I said earlier, when I was a kid, she just said she liked Barbara better. That's what I've known my whole life, so I didn't really dig into it much. Now I feel like an idiot. I honestly never intended to hurt her feelings. I never even considered that she changed it for any deeper reason than just an aesthetic preference. I don't know too much specifically about any childhood issues she had, but I do know her dad passed when she was about 6, so maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not planning to ask her for specifics because I don't want to open any more old wounds that I already have. For now, I'm taking a few comment suggestions, and I've been planning to write her a handwritten note apologizing, explaining everything, and asking to talk. She has a bit of a hard time with technology, so I think this will be a good way to show I genuinely want to discuss this and never meant to hurt her. I'm still not entirely sure about what to do with our name, but for now, my #1 priority is getting into contact with her and fixing our relationship. Another question that I've seen a lot is why my husband and I didn't just name our daughter Mary, or why I didn't use my grandmother's preferred name somewhere with my daughter. I have a good amount of nieces and nephews, and 2 of my nieces already have Barbara as a middle name, so I thought I'd do something a bit different. I like it, but I don't prefer it as my daughter's first name. As for my husband, he has only 1 niece, and she's already named Mary. I didn't want my daughter to have to share a name with her cousin, so that's why we tried to come up with a different way to honor his grandmother. Another group of comments I've seen have been joking why I ever thought that this would make her chuckle. My family doesn't joke around about it too much, but every now and then someone will say something along the lines of, "What do you think you're going to change your name to next?" And she would just let out a couple of laughs. This led me to believe that she was lighthearted about the whole thing. Looking back, I'm just now realizing that was only polite laughter, and I don't think she enjoyed it. I never thought about it when I was little, so I went my entire life thinking she was fine with everything. I feel awfully guilty now, and I'll be sure to apologize to her for that as well once I see her again. Not the jerk, but there's a lot more to this story about why your grandma changed her name. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a dramatic reaction. You can name your kid whatever you want, and to be honest, for your grandma to make such a big deal over something like this that has zero significance to anyone but her, to the point of punishing you and your grandkid, is malevolent, childish, and downright mean. You have 2 choices. Change your kid's name to appease a woman who won't explain and won't be around long, or name your kid what you want and not have a quilt or a goodwill from your grandma. It could be that in time your grandma will settle down, but perhaps she won't ever. It's your choice, but whatever you choose, you're not the jerks. You're the jerk. Even though you didn't name your daughter after your grandmother, it feels inappropriate to choose a name that seems derived from a living family member without asking them about it first, especially as you know how your own grandmother dislikes her birth name. Well, what do you think? Should OP change her baby's name to make her grandma happy or not? Please let us know. You name your baby what you want, and anybody who throws a big deal about it, that's on them. You gotta stop appeasing these people who think the world revolves around them. I don't know what kind of issues you got, but your issues have nothing to do with what I choose to name my baby. Am I the jerk for not letting my nephew use my car for prom, but said I might let his sister use it? I, 32 male, have a nephew, Josh, who's 18, and a niece, Sarah, who's 16, and this argument came up when visiting my sister. My car is a very modified classic car, a 72 Challenger with a modern motor swap, 6-speed manual, and more mods, putting out over 1,000 horsepower. It's not a beginner driver-friendly car. Josh didn't get his license until 3 months ago, and I'm pretty sure that he messed with the numbers to take the test for the 3rd time. I've seen him drive once, and even offered to ride with him before to help pump his hours up and to continue to drive so he can feel more comfortable. Sarah goes to car shows with me and has a modified Miata that she drives everywhere. She got her license 2 weeks after turning 16 and has had it for 8 months now. She drove with me every day after getting her permit and just has that drive to drive. Before anyone says I have my favorite, Josh and I game every night, and I built him a custom PC for getting honor roll. He's amazing at tech, loves gaming, and if he decides to continue, I will be paying for his college and will offer him a job at my business, which offers specialized tech services. I've told both of them the dollar amounts I have saved up that will be for them for the future. If they want to use it for school, training, down payment on a house, travel, it will be theirs, as long as they can tell me they have a plan. I bought both of them their first cars after they got their licenses and try to keep everything as close to fair as I can with them. I was over for dinner, and Josh said he can't wait for prom and was asking if he could use my car to drive his date. I told him I wasn't comfortable with him driving my car and that I would gladly drive him and his date and even wear his suit and funny hat to be his driver. He threw a fit and said that I would let Sarah take the car if she asked. I said if she kept driving and showing the control she has, I would consider it. I told him I feel he has not been driving long enough to be able to control this car and that I would be worried for his and his date's safety. I also told him I would trust him with my PC before I'd even let Sarah play The Sims on it, and it's just how they are different people with different interests. My sister said I should have just said no, but I've always told them I will never lie to them and I'll always explain myself because they're almost adults and they deserve to hear the truth. However, I won't be rude to them. He has since not played games with me and not responded to my text. His father says that I'm the jerk. His sister said I should have just said no, but now should just let him use the car. Sarah says she would be scared to drive the car. Our parents said I should have just said no. Am I the jerk? Dude's 32, plays video games with his nephew every night, puts money away for the niece and nephew. I think it's time he grows up and finds outside interests and let the parents rent their son a supercar. Seems like a really weird situation. OP. I run my own tech company. My wife passed from cancer 4 years ago. I decided to live my life the way I want, and that includes spending time with my family. I don't drink and I don't smoke. My house has been paid off for a few years. My bills are my business, keeping the lights on and my employees paid and happy, and insurance. I'm not going to be a slave, and if I can keep them from having to slave away, I will. Update. My parents returned from snowbirding, and so we decided that they would use my house to host Mother's Day. I won't go into detail, but after being told this, I made a nice dinner for my family and had everyone over. I tried to talk with Josh, but he was still obviously upset that I did not change my mind to let him use the car. At one point, while hosting outside, I hear a thunk, and Josh's dad gets a smirk on his face. Sarah goes pale and just mutters "He didn't." The family goes to see what the source of the noise was and finds Josh putting a bat away and a very obvious dent in my fender. A wave of calm comes over me, and I know exactly what to do. Get in, I tell him, firmly. After a minute of this, he hops in the passenger seat, and I take off. For legal reasons, I will not explain exactly how I drove my car, but the Happened in Mexico crew would be proud. After we get back to my house, he's pale, and I need a new set of tires. My sister yells at me that he could have been hurt. His father is quietly drinking my beer, and my dad is trying to help Josh walk, with the adrenaline pumping through him. Sarah mutters "Told you so," as I tell my sister that she and her husband have to pay to fix my fender or else I'll get the authorities involved. My mother is crying upset, and the day was ruined as people packed up and left and more words were said yelled. Currently, the car I bought for Josh is sitting in my driveway. I've already fixed my fender and sent a bill to my sister, who told me to shove it and that family doesn't treat family this way. I've called my buddy, who's the local sheriff, and can have charges pressed. I do have video footage of him willfully damaging my property. Josh apologized for everything. The drive was the wake-up call he needed and said he would get a job to pay for fixing my car, even though his mother has told him it's my problem to deal with. He said he was being a stupid kid and needed to grow up. I told him on top of fixing my car, he now gets to take Sarah's place of cleaning my work building and garage. His car is now just my car again, and he needs to figure out all the rides he needs to keep everyone happy. He told me to come get the PC I built him, but I told him to hold on to it for now. The bill? A little over $2,000. Luckily, I had the car painted last year and still had some mixed paint with the hardener in it. Worked the dent out. I was able to replace everything that needed to be replaced, but vintage cars are not cheap to work on. Try to get me fired? Enjoy the end of your law career. I'm John. I worked in a pizza shop back when I was in college. I worked with Sarah, a vindictive lady who would stir up a lot of drama. Sarah would pick a target and then bully them into quitting. Where I'm at, college students can receive welfare if their parents earn less than a certain threshold. I was ineligible for student support due to my parents' income, even though they didn't support me and I desperately needed this job. Matt, a new hire, quit after Sarah's harassment. Sarah's attention then turned to me. Sarah would approach my supervisor and spout BS like, "Hey, Mr. Supervisor, I asked John where the snake is, and he said the snake is cutting pizzas." This while the supervisor was actually cutting pizzas. She would shout at me with extreme hostility. She wouldn't warn me if pans were hot, a major sin in the kitchen. She conspired with her friends to accuse me of slacking off, even though they had never complained about me until Matt quit. This took a toll on me. My hours were cut, impacting both my financial and mental well-being. I even considered dropping out of college because I was struggling to afford rent. Sarah was illegally claiming students' welfare despite being employed by the pizza shop. You can only claim the welfare if you're unemployed. Sarah, in the first year of her law degree, was also aspiring to become a lawyer. The thing about being a lawyer is that you need to be admitted to the bar to begin practicing. The law industry is very strict. Even proven allegations of plagiarism in college would make one permanently ineligible to become a lawyer. Frankly, she was stupid for defrauding the government. There's an anonymous complaint line for welfare fraud. Most of the time, the welfare department never follows up. Occasionally, however, they would send officials to investigate. This was one of those few times they followed up. I sent an anonymous tip stating the business, her schedule, her name, and her number. I was on shift when some officials from the welfare department came in, informing us that multiple complaints were made against Sarah. I think my boss could have just told them to scram since they probably didn't have a warrant, but instead of doing that, he licked their shoes, showing them all of the CCTV footage. The officials then questioned Sarah. She panicked, confessing to everything. I felt no sympathy for her. As a law student, she should have known to remain silent. Long story short, Sarah received a suspended sentence, which would most certainly disqualify her from becoming a lawyer. She dropped out of college while I continued working at the pizza shop and eventually graduated with an associate's. I have an alright job now. Friend used me as bait for a guy she didn't tell me she liked. When I, female 18, was about a year out of high school, I started working at a restaurant in a much wealthier community than the working class one I had grown up in. I started as a hostess, then got promoted to waitstaff. After a while, I started to bond with this girl, Gretchen, female 18, who was a hostess. She relied on me to vent to and to share all of her troubles with. Her parents were not nice, only caring about money and social status. I also started hearing about how she was having trouble with infighting and backstabbing among this friend group, many of whom also worked at the restaurant. The restaurant was a place where a lot of young people from the area hung out. I felt bad for her, but I also enjoyed her sense of humor and intellect. And we shared a lot of similar tastes in music and style, so she and I became good friends. At one point, she introduced me to this guy, Chris, who was 18, that she knew. He and I instantly had chemistry, and I could tell he was very into me. He started coming around the restaurant a lot, sitting in my section, and one day when Gretchen wasn't there, he asked for my number. It felt like the friends I had always wanted were finally coming together, like my life was about to launch. All of these people lived in their parents' giant opulent mansions in this very upscale town, driving luxury cars their parents gave them, while I would slink back to my broken down Honda that I'd park in a hidden spot and drive to my family's tiny house in the working class town with its broken down pickup trucks on cement blocks in people's yards, feeling like an alien in both worlds. I was slightly older than some of my new friends, being a year out of high school, while most of them had just graduated, but felt worlds less sophisticated than they appeared to be. Anyway, I didn't really understand why she was so eager to introduce us. Why didn't she want him for herself? He was very cute. It was only later in retrospect that I looked back on the way she introduced us and realized she was using me to bait him to come around the restaurant. So he and I started to hook up. I didn't get why he wanted to be so secret about it at first, but I'll admit that he was 10 times hotter than any guy I ever dated, and I let myself get swept up into a mostly physical relationship. He asked me not to tell Gretchen because he could tell she was into him, and although I thought that was silly as she had introduced us, so obviously if she had ever had any romantic feelings for him, she was over it, but I reluctantly agreed. Not my proudest moment. Gretchen and I began to hang out more and more and became BFFs. We began to spend every free moment together. My secret hooking up with Chris felt more and more deceitful, and I cooled it down with him a little. But I was young and didn't know how to handle the situation, and I'm sure I did everything wrong. I thought that I was beginning to fall in love with Chris, but didn't like being a secret hookup, so just sort of let it continue in secret. I'll admit this wasn't smart or good. After a while, I got a job at another restaurant, as there was too much drama at that restaurant, and I could make more money at this new place and wanted to go to college. But I continued to hang out with the people I met through the first restaurant. Gretchen and I went Christmas shopping together one day at the mall and took a break to eat lunch. That's when I accidentally got a glimpse of her Christmas present shopping list as she checked it off. She had high dollar values listed next to the names of all these high status, wealthy, good looking, and cool people that I suddenly realized she was desperately trying to become friends with. $100 here, $200 there, and then there was my name, supposedly her best friend, with $5 listed next to it. It instantly made my heart sink. I don't care about expensive gifts, but it made me realize how little she valued me, with an actual dollar sign to prove it. Nobody owes me anything, but I had already spent over $50 for her Christmas gift, and I felt like a schmuck, realizing that we weren't actually best friends, and she saw me as someone to spend time with until better people came along. Among the names of her high-value people that she was desperate to become friends with, that she was willing to spend all of her parents' money to try to win over, was Chris, the guy that she introduced me to, who I was now seeing. She had $200 next to his name. I began to feel sick to my stomach. I didn't say anything to her, as I probably shouldn't have looked over at the list in the first place. But then something happened that really made my blood boil. She began to tell me how much she was in love with Chris, that she was sure he was her soulmate, that she thought about him every day, all day. If she had said even a fraction of this to me when she introduced him to me, there's no way I would have hooked up with him. I suddenly felt all kinds of emotions swirling around at once. Why had she withheld this information from me? And why was she telling me this now? I began to realize she had been using me to keep him around. Then she started going on and on about how she spent all night on the phone with him the night before, which I knew was a lie because he was with me. I sat there seething and beginning to hate her, and finally interrupted her to say, "None of that is true. He wasn't on the phone with you last night." She got this look on her face that I will never forget, instant knowing and aware that I not only caught her in her fantasyland delusional lie, but also knowing why I knew what he did the night before. She just sat there looking into my face and me looking back at her. I relished the look of hate and betrayal that had come over her face. I gave it right back to her. You could tell that she never expected little, stupid me to betray her this way. I was just supposed to be her lapdog, always there for her with no needs or wants of my own. Friendship over. She told everyone from the restaurant about what an evil, backstabbing jerk I was to steal her man from her, and all of my friends from that job stopped talking to me. But you know what? Forget her and forget them. Okay, so friendship over, but what about Chris? How did that story end? OP. Here's what I replied to someone else. He and I stopped being friends with benefits and tried to maintain a platonic friendship after that, but he had come around, still wanting to hook up, and I did give in now and then, hate to admit it, and then eventually we just decided being friends wasn't working. I'm now married. This was a few years back. I did Google him recently, and he's also married and living in a very upscale community with his beautiful blonde wife and a tiny little house with a view of the San Francisco Bay. My Karen sister-in-law ate my dinner, so I kicked her out. My husband's sister moved in with us after she had a major argument about the baby's name. They're expecting and she's 7 months in. She's known to be picky and refuses to eat what we normally cook. We only cook her favorite food, which I can't eat. Allergies, yay. Every day at dinner, I have to figure out what to eat since she only eats food that I'm allergic to. Last night, my husband agreed that he'd cook for her, then he'd cook for us separately. I got home after a long day at work and found out that sister-in-law convinced my husband to only cook the meal she wanted and cancel on the meal he and I planned to have. I saw them eating together in the kitchen. My husband apologetically said his sister convinced him to eat with her and not cook the meal I wanted us both to have. I said it was fine, then went to order some food from the restaurant. I went to take a shower and did some work on my laptop. Then I came downstairs to find my order placed on the kitchen counter. It was open and someone ate the majority of it. I turned around and there was sister-in-law standing there saying that she woke up hungry and couldn't resist the smell that was coming out of the box. I lost it and yelled at her, asking why did she do this? But she said that she did save me some, which isn't even true because there was only some rice and dressing. We started arguing and I told her I couldn't take this anymore. I told her to pack her crap and leave first thing in the morning. She began crying and my husband got involved and defended her up and down, repeatedly saying that she's pregnant and she's eating for two basically. He suggested I go make myself something quick from the fridge and just let it go, but I refused and a bigger argument ensued. Am I the jerk for kicking her out over this? Not the jerk. And you don't have a sister-in-law problem, you have a husband problem. Don't get me wrong, your sister-in-law sounds like a spoiled, selfish, and entitled piece of work, pregnant or not. But your problem is that your husband is more concerned with her health and happiness than yours. He needs to get his priorities in the right place. Not the jerk. And honestly, I think your husband should go with her. She's not an infant herself. She can make her own food if she doesn't want what everyone else is having. And if she wants more when she's done with that, she can find a way to get it that doesn't involve depriving you of even one meal. You're the jerk. She's pregnant. Can't you show the slightest bit of compassion? Having been pregnant many times myself, I can tell you the cravings are insane. At the end of the day, we're talking about food here. It seems like you don't even care that she's pregnant, and like your husband said, she is eating for 2 people right now. You honestly sound jealous of your husband's great relationship with his sister. One reason my brother cut me off was because of his new wife. She thought our relationship was weird for all kinds of reasons. Newsflash, us sharing a bed when he stayed over was not uncommon at all. She said he could have stayed on the sofa instead. But if you love someone, you should have no problem cuddling with them to stay warm. Stop being a Karen. I'd give anything to just hold my brother one more time, to look in his eyes and tell him how much I love him. But thanks to his insane wife, that will never happen. Yowza! Sounds like you've got more issues than People magazine. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. If sister-in-law ate my food, I'd put something special in it that would get rid of her for good. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.